Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's Dina Kalmeta here and Susan Davis with Jesus 24/7. And today we're going to continue in the End Times News Report Week in Review. Susan, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much, Dina. It's great to be back. We're here in, I guess it is now January 2025. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Well,
Wow.
I know. It can't believe it, but 24 is officially behind us. We're into the new year. Let me just say this, a blessed new year to everybody who listens to us. And if you are listening to us for the first time, what we do here every week, every 7 days, we look at news headlines from around the world that lines up with Bible prophecy. And it's getting harder and harder for us to keep our information within the time allotted. But that's the challenge now. Okay. So is to keep it all within that time frame. Anyway, so let's take a look at what we've got going on that's really happening. And I think I want to talk about this eruption, the Ruang volcano. And this thing had plumes of ash in Indonesia that went 26,000 feet in the air. Dina.
Wow, that's huge.
Raung, I guess is how you pronounce it. I mean, this is just huge. I mean, 26,000 feet?
That's high. That's really high.
Yeah. That's like 1.9 miles. And if anybody's wondering, get in your car, drive on the interstate, 1.9 miles, and that's how big this plume was coming out of this volcano. So that's a lot of ash going down, okay? These are the events, these are the activities that we're seeing nowadays. And it's going on everywhere. Just wow. How about this? CVS is in trouble. They've got a lawsuit. The Justice Department has filed a lawsuit claiming the company, beginning of October 2013, contributed to the ongoing opioid epidemic by ignoring red flags on prescriptions that resulted in them filling dangerous quantities and dangerous combinations of drugs. That's kind of serious, isn't it?
Well, that can potentially kill somebody.
Exactly. And has. I mean, so anyway, the practices alleged contributed to the opioid crisis and opioid related deaths. And today's complaint seeks to hold CVS accountable for its misconduct, according to Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Brian Boynton. And that was in a recent statement. So I guess they're in trouble, just like the maker of opioids recently lost a big sum of money for their involvement. Okay. So, yeah, people need to be held accountable. It's terrible what's going on with this. Oh, well, we have in the United States something like 100,000 people overdose on these drugs annually. It's incredible. It's huge. Okay. 3 shot dead as gunmen attacked a Haiti hospital. Can you believe that?
Oh, it's horrific.
Yeah, Haiti has a lot of stuff going on, and we continue to talk about them over and over. And, every week we talk about the flooding. Let me just say this. I want to talk about Fiji, but let me just mention Haiti again. They had deadly floods inundate homes and streets. Nearly 500 homes destroyed, around 11,000 buildings flooded in the central part of Haiti's northern town of Port-de-Paix, according to Haitian police report this past week. So at least 13 people have died. 15 more have been injured as a result of flooding in 4 departments in Haiti. Okay, so this is what's going on. Over the course of several days, the flood destroyed, and I said 500 houses. Now, let me also mention that about 100 houses have been damaged, not just destroyed, but damaged. And now listen to this. More than 16,500 houses remain flooded.
Oh my goodness.
Now, when I said 500 houses destroyed, they didn't consider those just flooded. They actually were destroyed. There's a difference, right? So altogether, there were 17,000 houses destroyed and flooded with an additional 100 damaged. That's a lot of activity.
Yes,
And
it is.
that's Haiti And, not like they don't have issues. They've had all sorts of shootings and gang activity and murders. I mean, Haiti is just, it's a mess, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a mess. And I have told people over and over that in the 1700s, they made a pact with the devil and they got together and they did this. But the people that did it were being tormented by the French at the time. And so that doesn't make what they did right, but that was their, thinking. Anyway, so if you're curious about that, you can go to the history books and look it up. It's in there. We had flash flooding in Fiji. So they also got hit. They got 5 inches of rainfall in 24 hours, 5.8, almost 6 on Christmas Eve. So that's a whole lot of water. And we talk about that over and over. If you get up to 2 inches of rain in your area, you're heading into flash flooding. So 5 inches in 24 hours is some pretty big stuff. Now they had golf ball size hailstones pound Cypress, Texas this past week. We keep seeing this hail, Dina, all over the place, right?
Judgment.
Yeah,
What
judgment.
it is. Judgment.
Yeah, exactly right. I did want to mention, we've talked about this in the past. There was a headline that came out that said Russia did this on Christmas, that they launched a huge attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, which authorities said was the 12th large-scale attack on energy facilities this year. 93 missiles and more than 200 drones were used, but 81 of the missiles were shot down, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. And the strikes targeted sites in western Ukraine, damaging energy facilities in several regions, some seriously. Okay, so there was a lot of talk about this, but I do believe that it was a knee-jerk reaction to something that Ukraine had done previously. Their drones had a massive attack on Russian fuel depot. Ukraine attacked a major fuel facility in western Russia as part of a massive drone attack over the border. A Russian official has said targeting the same site Kiev said supplies the Russian military for the second time in a little over a week. I believe, this is like a tit for tat kind of thing. I know people were saying, Russia did this, but I think it's a direct response to what Ukraine had just done. What do you think, Dina?
Tit for tat. There you have it.
Exactly. Exactly. And these things go on. It's just going to keep going on. So, okay, we had at least 3 killed and 4 seriously hurt after a packed bus with tourists on board plunges into a lake in Norway. Isn't that awful?
It's terrible. Catastrophe after catastrophe.
I know. It just keeps going. This bus was carrying 58 passengers, including many foreign nationals, when it skidded off a main road during bad weather. So that must have just been horrendous. But we're seeing these kind of calamity all over the planet. All right. Now, this is really bizarre and crazy, but I'm going to mention it. Okay. I have talked about Mozambique recently, and they got flooded and they got really damaged by a hurricane that came in. I think it was Typhoon Chido, but they had at least 45 dead, probably more, because I don't trust those numbers. But anyway, now they've got something going on that's really crazy. This is same area, Mozambique. They had at least 6,000 inmates escape high security jail during a bloody Christmas riot after prisoners stole guards' weapons. Okay. So cops have now called for criminals, which includes 29 terrorists, to give themselves up after they fled through a toppled wall. And so the police chief, Raphael, said 33 prisoners died and 15 others injured during a fight with the security forces as part of the escape. I mean, can you believe all the evil things going on around the planet now, Dina?
It's incredible.
It's
It really
really
is.
incredible.
Bible prophecy coming alive right before our eyes.
I know. I know. This is the kind of, they had this going on in Haiti. They had a bunch of people escape prison. I mean, and where do they go? They go out among the people. It's terrible. All right. Well, we had something really wild happen this past week, Dina. A KLM Royal Dutch airline flight bound for Amsterdam from Norway skidded off the runway after a hydraulic failure forced the plane to reroute for an emergency landing. and it was a Boeing 737 en route from Oslo, Norway to Amsterdam, but diverted from its planned route and landed at the Oslo Tor Sandjord Airport. This was really bad. It had 176 passengers, 6 crew members, but nobody was injured. Now, that, happened, but listen to this. In the same week, there was a plane crash, an Azerbaijani plane. 2 passengers and 1 crew member on the plane crashed in Kazakhstan, and they told Reuters, the news source, that they heard at least one loud bang as it approached its original destination of Grozny in southern Russia. Okay, so this flight crashed on this past week in a ball of fire near the city of Akatau in Kazakhstan after diverting from an area of southern Russia where Moscow has repeatedly used air defense systems against Ukraine attack drones. Well, at least 38 people were killed, with 29 surviving. At least that's what this initial report says. But again, we have another plane crash this past week. Now, let's go over to Korea and take a look, because a third plane crashed same week. At least 62 people have been killed. I think those figures might have changed, but when it was from a commercial airplane that crashed at an airport in South Korea, according to the country's National Fire Agency. And the jet flight veered off the runway while landing at Muan International Airport, caught fire after the crash. And I saw pictures, and it was just horrible. Oh, here is an update. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's just take a look at an update. At least 176 people have died. And so
That's
that
terrible.
that is what we have here. And I don't know that anybody survived this particular flight. But I want to say that what they were reporting as they were arriving before they crashed was that there were birds coming their way, and it was causing their landing gear to malfunction. And this was shortly after the control tower warned them about birds in the area. So this is what we heard. But here's something even more interesting. 13 South Korean government officials were on the flight.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is. That is interesting. Okay, so I want to just say, things are coming in threes. I mean, this past week, we actually had 3 ski lift events happen. We've talked about this before, but we had a chairlift in the French Alps experience technical issues on Christmas Eve, stranding more than 200 skiers, and they had to be rescued via helicopter. Can you imagine?
That's frightening.
240 skiers endured hours in the cold 20-degree weather with winds beating on them. Can you imagine that?
No, no, absolutely not.
Oh my goodness. They were up there like 5 hours, I think. And then there was also 5 people injured in a chairlift accident in California, Tahoe, Heavenly Mountain Resort in South Lake Tahoe. And same thing, people stuck in these chairs. And again in Colorado, a ski lift stalled with 174 people needing to be rescued. So we talked a little bit about that, but we had 3 events this past week. That's crazy, isn't it?
They come in threes. That's what they say.
Yes. And I want to mention threes because New Year's Eve, I think it was, lightning hit 3 buildings. It was the Empire State Building, it was the United States Capitol, and I think it was 3 landmarks. Dina, did you hear about this?
I did not. Tell us more, Susan.
Okay. The Washington Monument, the Capitol, and the Empire State Building were all hit with lightning
Oh, wow.
in the same night. That's really kind of crazy, isn't it?
Kind of spooky, creepy.
I don't know. It's almost like a sign, don't you think? Something funny about that, right?
Something going on.
Same night, 3 major United States landmarks. Oh, well. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take a look at the sinkhole activity. We talk about this every week, but I mean, things are going on. The I-80 eastbound in New Jersey got closed until further notice after a large sinkhole opens up. A 40-foot wide sinkhole collapsed a portion of the I-80 highway in New Jersey this week. Can you believe that? I mean, we spoke about one last week, this huge hole that was next to a house, and that's got to be your worst nightmare. If one of those open up that big. This thing was big enough to swallow a whole house.
That's spooky.
It's horrible. They're horrible. And they're opening up all over the planet. And they have been for, I don't know, a few years, but it just started recently. Earthquakes in diverse places. We had a magnitude 6.7 earthquake strike Kuril Islands in Russia. So we continue to see that. According to what the news said a Florida pizza delivery woman was stabbed a pregnant customer 14 times over a bad tip.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Now here's the detail. They discovered she was pregnant after she went to the hospital for being stabbed. And I think it was actually a robbery. The pizza delivery woman was with a guy and they attempted to rob this customer. So it's a little bit more than the bad tip thing. Okay. But that's frightening, isn't it?
Yes, it is. This world is evil.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, the headlines are just unreal that we're reading. This is news. How about this? A 60-year-old woman was mauled to death by a tiger while she was working in her field near the forested area of Cavett Path in the Verver Forest Range. And this was over in India. Okay, so this is the 29th fatality in wild animal attacks in Chandrapur district this year, with most incidents involving tigers. Can you believe this?
More signs of the times.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And according to their records, there has been a 127% rise in deaths due to tiger attacks in up since 2023 in comparison to past years per government records. So apparently, this is starting to be a regular thing. And at the national level, 349 people were killed in tiger attacks during the past 5 years. Isn't that unbelievable? I mean,
Sounds
who
like the
knew?
beasts are getting more aggressive.
Well, the reason I want to bring this out, and we're seeing a lot of dog attacks now, dogs killing people. There's just so much of that going on. I don't have time to really discuss it all, but it's starting to be a thing, noticeable. Okay. Now, if you look at the four horses of the apocalypse, which are the first four events when tribulation starts of the 21 judgments, these are the first four judgments. And the first one being the white horse, which is the onset of the Antichrist. The second is the red horse, which is war, world war. Third being the black horse, which is famine and economic crisis. The fourth is the pale horse, and that is death. Now, the death comes from disease, and also, interestingly enough, the beasts rise up. So we talk about these four horses, Dina, that they're all starting to culminate now, that we're seeing evidence that all four of those horses are beginning to take form in the world right now, right? We've talked about that. So this is no different for the fourth one. The fourth horse, which is the pale horse, is disease. Now we're seeing disease kind of rear its ugly head all over the place. And now we're also seeing the beast. So this shows you how accurate the Bible is, right?
The Bible is always going to be right on point.
Just imagine animals out there that normally aren't stirred up to attack humans start to do that. I mean, this is not going to be a pleasant place very soon, right?
No, absolutely not.
No, and we're starting to see it begin, the beginning stages of this. Now, does that mean we're in tribulation, like some people say? Absolutely not. These are birth pains we're in. How do we know? Well, if you study the Bible, you're definitely going to know that that's the case. And if you want to know more about it, we have a series you can check out. It's called Revelation for Beginners. And we want you to go over there and check this out. These videos we've done a line by line survey of the 22 chapters of Revelation. And it's set up for people who've never read the Bible or Revelation before. So it's easy to follow along. But this is what's going on. I mean, these things are culminating. It's getting bad out there, but we're not in tribulation because, for one thing, Dina and I couldn't be doing this show if we were in tribulation, right, Dina?
No, we would not be able to do this show. We wouldn't be
No,
able to be aired. They would not air us.
no, no. No, I guarantee you, people will not be talking about the gospel freely in tribulation. So that right there was one of the biggest signs that this is not tribulation. But anyway, well, we are seeing a lot of tragedies and an increase of it, like this one, for instance. 69 people dead after boat sinks in Moroccan waters.
Wow, that's happening more and more lately.
I know, I know. At least 69 people, including 25 Malians, have died after a boat bound for Spain from West Africa capsized off Morocco, Mali's authorities have confirmed. The makeshift boat was carrying about 80 people, but only 11 people survived, said a statement from the Ministry of Malians Abroad. At least 9 of the survivors are from Mali. Okay. Terrible, terrible things going on everywhere you turn, right?
Every day.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And I just want to mention something that we are beginning to see all kinds of activity, and we've covered it quite a bit. A lot of people who are immigrants are coming over these migration routes spanning from Atlantic coast to Morocco to Spain, and it's regarded as one of the most dangerous in the world. Many of those taking this dangerous route from sub-Saharan Africa, escaping poverty and conflict in their home countries. So Morocco is just 8 nautical miles from Spain's mainland at its closest point. So get this, over 10,457 migrants have died trying to reach Spain by sea this year. It's an average of 30 deaths a day. And these statistics were compiled by Spanish migration rights groups, Walking Borders, which said this is the most amount of deaths that it has recorded since it began tracking migrant deaths at sea back in 2007. It shows overall deaths rose nearly 60% compared to 2023. So this is a crisis of major proportion, Dina.
Yes, it is. Very sad.
By the way, how many people are making it over? 60,000 migrants
Wow.
reached Spain by boat in 2024. I mean, that just goes to show you how very bad it is over in these African countries that they're fleeing. All right. Well, just quickly, record-breaking New York had its first snow in 15 years this past week.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Yep. First time in 15 years. That's a big deal. Well, we keep talking about this flooding. Let me just mention that Storm Elena caused severe flooding in Attica, Greece. And so they also got flooded this past week. That covers many northern and southern suburbs. Residents woke to heavy rainfall, which flooded dozens of houses and swept away cars. We've spoken of this in the past. This is the first year that I have talked about cars floating as much as we have this past year. I mean, the sight of it, Dina, is so bizarre and unusual. It's completely abnormal to see floods so bad that cars floating away like Hot Wheels, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't seen that in past years as often as we do now.
Never. I've never seen it. I thought it was shocking when I first started seeing that happen. And now it's just frequent. And so something is really going on. But I want to mention all these disasters. We've talked about so many disasters this past year, even in just the United States alone. We had Helene that went, all the way from Florida up into North Carolina and just wiped the place out. And then we had Milton come across Florida and cause a lot of damage. But we had huge number of tornadoes across the Midwest this past year year. I think they numbered in the 50. I can't even remember. It was a large number. And they were huge. They were record setting. EF4, just massive tornadoes wiping out whole cities and areas. Well, let me just say this, all this stuff going on, and not just in the United States, but also in the United States, has led to homelessness that has jumped to a new record this year as housing cost has soared. And that's from CBS News as the source. But homelessness in the US jumped 18.1% this year, hitting a record level, with dramatic rise driven mostly by a lack of affordable housing as well as devastating natural disasters and surge of migrants in some regions of the country. So more than 770,000 people were counted as homeless in federally required tallies taken across the country during a single night in January of 2024. Okay, so that's not even including this year. And I'm sure these numbers are going to be way bigger when they are compiled at the end of this year. But nearly 150,000 children experienced homelessness on a single night in 2024, reflecting a 33% jump from last year. Is that just a national tragedy or what, Dina?
Yes, it is. That's horrific.
Oh, you can't believe this is going on. Unsheltered veterans was 13,851. We're talking about our military. I mean, that just shouldn't be. I mean, you can't believe this is happening, right?
Part of the end days that we're living in.
There you go. Here's the figure on US homelessness right now. 771,441 US homeless. And there was a Mayor Bill Wells from El Cajon, California, and he was on Fox News, and he says that the state of California has hit record highs for homelessness. He says California has pumped $25 billion into homelessness, and it's just getting worse. And he says they just have massive numbers of homeless. I think we're talking in California, get this, 186,000 homeless in California. And that's versus Texas with 25,000.
That's a
Now,
lot.
oh, yeah. And now here's what this guy, this mayor in California says. He says that California coddles the homeless with perks instead of prosecuting drug abusers. Okay. He says that the problem with the homelessness in California is the vast majority of them have drug and alcohol problems, and they are not being dealt with. And that's why people are flooding into California. He says that the reason people are homeless on the whole is because they have addictions that they can't get control of, and they don't want to get control of. He says they are offered an opportunity to get a better life for themselves, but they have to go through these drug classes and get off the drugs, and they'd rather be homeless and continue their drug addictions than to get help and get off the streets. He says they just don't want to quit their drugs.
They're
They'd rather stay in their condition and do their drugs. And, you know, the problem with that is it affects so many other people. It affects the people in the neighborhoods, and it affects the children of these people, and everybody suffers. And it goes back to the enemy. This all goes to, it stems to pharmakeia, which the Bible calls sorcery, and that's exactly what we're heading for. Because isn't it fascinating that in Revelation it talks quite a bit about this going on in the end times?
Yeah, it goes into detail about that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, more flooding, Dina, in the Philippines this last week.
Again?
Yes, heavy rains brought by the shear line on Christmas Day caused floods in at least 44 villages in Camarines Sur and left 2 dead in separate incidents in the province in nearby Camarines Norte. I mean, can you believe it? It just keeps going. Now, for anybody who's just joining us, the Philippines have been hit by, I think it was 6 hurricanes and a tropical storm 7 different type storms in the past, since the beginning of November. So it's just been horrible what they've been going through. And yet we've got 44 villages flooded. 2 landslide incidents were reported in the same area. At least 95 families or 439 people evacuated from that area, and they had a drowning as well. 28-year-old man drowned. These are terrible times that we're involved in, but these are birth pains, and they're coming closer together and stronger, just like God describes in the Bible. He uses a woman in labor to describe how these end times are going to go, and that's how it's going. I mean, these are things we're seeing. Dina, the Bible talks about the waves roaring, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay, here we go. Large waves up to 13 feet pummeled Ecuador, Chile, and Peru, where nearly 100 ports were closed because of rough conditions. It was almost kind of like a tsunami came into the shores of Peru, and they had to close all these ports. But I saw the clip and I couldn't believe it. These boats out there were these fishermen's boats and tourist boats were flopping around in the water, just rolling with the waves. It was crazy what's going on there. Dozens of boats damaged, homes flooded, and they did have one fatality, but you just can't believe this. Here's a new update: 121 ports with over 200 fishermen in Peru ended up stranded in swells, while one person died in Ecuador's coastal city of Manta. You just can't believe this stuff's going on. This is what a fisherman said to Peru TV. He said, "We need help from authorities. Here we've lost some 100 boats." He said, "I'm 70 years old and I've never seen such unusual and strong waves." So that's crazy. Oh, here's another one. 31 fishermen stranded in the swell were rescued by the Navy, while one local radio said that around 180 more remained at sea. So we don't know what that means exactly. We don't know if they're lost or what happened, but that was in Peru and Ecuador and Chile. All right. Well, Delhi in India also was flooded, had some major flooding this week. Okay. So it just keeps going everywhere. We had an earthquake swarm in Iceland this past week, and another earthquake near Fentale volcano, sparking eruption concerns in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has its own problems, we know, but we had a tornado damage that hit Athens in Alabama. They had a powerful EF1 tornado tear through Athens, Alabama, Saturday night this past week. At least 4 died in a severe weather outbreak that wreaked havoc across southeast U.S. 2 tornadoes reported in Alabama. As I mentioned, 5 swept over Texas. So Texas had their share of activity. A lot of damage in this whole area. Anyway, 42 tornado reports across 7 states, including Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. And Dina, I just want to say something about this. I don't think I've ever heard of late December tornado activity in the South before. Have you?
No, I have not.
This is a new one for me. Usually tornadoes are big in like the Midwest in like the spring, but late December in the South, that's really strange, isn't it?
That's weird.
It sure is. I mean, this is like everything is topsy-turvy now. I just picked this up. I don't know if you caught it, but they've got snow, frost in the Sahara desert, as in desert. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Just FYI. I don't know what we're going to talk about from week to week. You just never know, right?
It's always an adventure on this
Yeah.
show.
It just really is. Okay. Okay. We just spoke about Australia having major fires, but this past week they kind of switched gears and Queensland area had severe thunderstorms and flooding. They had a whopping 82 millimeters of rain recorded in the Western Downs region. And so that was all over there in Australia. I'm not sure that it hit the area that needed it with the fires, but Anyway, a lot of that going on. They had landslide claim 2 lives as men dig for coal in Kentucky. Again, I don't always hear about landslides in Kentucky, but we did this week. Okay, now here we go. Bosnia had more than 200,000 homes lose power as snowstorms continue to batter the Balkans. Dina, we had heavy rains fall in Havana this week, flooding several municipalities of Cuba. Once again, they got inundated with water, 8 inches in 24 hours in Cuba, and flooding in their main city, Havana. Can you believe this?
This is horrible.
Every week we are telling these things, and it's just, you can't believe this is going on. I don't know if you heard this report, but I'll mention it. Russian TV host Vladimir Solovyov, a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, recently called for Alaska's return to Russia during a recent Russian state media program. And so this was Newsweek that reported this. Let's see, also MSN. But see, Alaska once belonged to Russia. In 1867, it was sold to the United States after then President Andrew Johnson signed the Alaska Treaty. It gained the status of a state January 3rd, 1959. And so Alaska and Russia are positioned. Okay, I didn't know this, but it's interesting. They're about 53 miles apart at their closest point. Isn't that something?
Very interesting.
Well, now they're saying Russia wants to take back Alaska.
I heard about that. I knew that was coming. I had a feeling that was coming.
Yeah, and I mean, if they attempted to do that, the question is, would we try to stop it?
Yes, especially with the incoming administration. Absolutely.
So that will be something to watch. And maybe this is just talk, so we don't know, right?
We don't know until we know, until it
Exactly.
happens.
Exactly. All right. Well, we talk about sudden destruction on this show, and here is another event. And we've mentioned many things that could be part of sudden destruction besides nuclear. We've talked about the San Andreas Fault, the New Madrid Fault, and some of these other volcanoes around the planet, and Yellowstone, and all these activities. But here's something interesting. Douglas McIntyre, editor-in-chief at Climate Crisis, warns about the potential eruption of Indonesia's Mount Tambora, one of the world's most historically destructive volcanoes. Scientists predict that an eruption could send ash high into the atmosphere and across continents, leading to sunlight blockage and widespread environmental damage, and the environment could be profoundly affected. So I think that's interesting. They're concerned about it. And so just another one of these things that could create major sudden destruction. Well, we had the Takra area of Libya witness major flooding this past week. How about that? Damaging about 30 homes, no injuries, but still flooding in Libya. Don't hear about that usually, do we?
No, we don't.
Wow, the floods are just popping up here and there and everywhere, right?
The days of Noah.
Yeah, what else can you say? They had major flooding in Singapore this week. The heaviest rainfall in Sunday, this past Sunday, December 29th, deluge was in central Singapore. So they got hit also. Now, I don't know if people heard about this event, but this was huge. 70 killed in an Ethiopian road accident. The death toll from
Catastrophe everywhere.
I know. The death toll from a road accident in southern Ethiopia has risen to, okay, here's an update, 71 after a vehicle carrying a wedding party veered into a river. The truck careened into the water around 5:30 this past week, 180 miles south of the capital. And this took place in Ethiopia. But yes, I mean, I had heard earlier this year that there was a wedding party, a large wedding party die en route to a wedding. Do you recall that?
I think I do. That's something of horror flicks.
I know. This is just awful. These things we keep hearing about. This is odd. Kashmir, India experienced heavy snow this week, accumulating 5 to 37 inches across a region. In India, I don't think I recall them ever having 37 inches of snow.
No, I don't either.
But that's new and different, right?
Yeah.
Talk about power outages, and we're hearing about quite a bit of that. I want to mention that Puerto Rico, nearly the whole island of Puerto Rico is without power this New Year's Eve.
I did hear about that.
Yes, can you imagine? The whole thing has gone dark. It's
That
like a
is
major
terrible.
blackout. Yes,
That's like, for instance, if a EMP would hit.
right. Leaving more than 1.3 million Puerto Ricans in the dark.
We got to pray for Puerto Rico.
Yeah, they Haiti and all of them. They
All
need
of them.
a lot of prayer. Here's another group that needs prayer. They're still suffering, according to reports in North Carolina, and they suffered another minor flooding, which destroyed roughly 20 makeshift roads and bridges erected as temporary solutions in Boone and Newland after Helene wiped out whole infrastructural systems, according to Relief Group. Yeah, they had built these little bridges, several of them, so the people could get in and out of the areas they were living in. And this water came through and destroyed these makeshift bridges for the residents.
Oh,
And so you just can't believe this. You can't believe this is going on. And there's still so many up in this area that are living outside in tents, and the temperatures are beginning to drop in this region of the country. You know, they're getting really cold weather now, and they're still in tents. It says here nearly 700 families still living outside in tents with the temperatures dropping. Yeah, it's going to get in the teens and the 20s in that part of the country this time of year, and the mountains like that, high up in the mountains. Just a terrible situation. And yet, you know, FEMA set up their fancy trailers and go to their nice hotel rooms. We did see a rock slide above a portion of two Colorado highways this past week. Oh, get this. A Tyson food plant in southwest Georgia overnight exploded, killing a woman sleeping in the cab of an 18-wheeler parked next to the facility. Yes, a boiler exploded. Well,
oh, that's terrible.
I know, I know. And there have been 103 plants or more in America that have been destroyed, damaged, or impacted by accidental fires, disease, or general causes. Something's up, right?
Yes.
Something is up.
Something's not right.
Yes, and it seems to continue to be up. Okay. Well, anyway, we just want to thank everybody for being part of what we do here week after week. And I just want to put out a personal plea that we really need your support. And what we need from you guys is for you to share these videos, because we tend to be blocked to our own subscribers in so many situations. We're not going to say how or where, but we'll just say social media in general, because it is. It's not any one group that's doing it. It's multiple groups. So we need your help. We need you to help us bust through these algorithms and get the news out to people, because you're not going to hear these news headlines and this information on your regular mainstream media. You're not even going to know about these things. In fact, I just saw somebody say they have to look at international and European and other foreign news sources to find out what's going on in the United States. And that's exactly the truth. Really appreciate you guys helping us out. We appreciate you coming back week after week and hitting the like button and making the great comments that you do. You know, we just want people to understand that we're in the end times, and these are birth pains, and the Lord's coming back, and the Bible is coming to pass so fast with total accuracy that it just makes our head spin. We just want to demonstrate how accurate the Bible is. So the best thing you can do is get a relationship going with Jesus Christ, and do it quickly, and don't waste any time. But anyway, we thank you guys, and Dina, I thank you too, and I'll just let you take over from here.
All righty then. Well, thank you, Susan, so much for coming on the show and talking to all of us over here. And thank you to the audience. We love you so much and we appreciate you so much for listening in, for sharing our videos, for liking our videos, and commenting. I want to hear from you. Susan wants to hear from you. So please do leave your comments below this video. And if you're looking for this video, you can find it on Susan's YouTube channel, Marriage Supper of the Lamb Ministries, my YouTube channel, Dina Amelia Kalmeta. We're also on Rumble, and we also have shows on podcast, Google, Apple, and Spotify. And I think that's it on my side. Susan, is there? Oh, and of course, we're on Facebook and X, you guys. So come on over there, like the pages, and subscribe. Susan, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I really do want to mention our website or the End Time Prophecy Catalog.com website. If you go over there, it is a catalog basically of free stuff. Everything's free. Just download book. There's all kinds of things. We've got podcasts and we have articles. We're trying to put a lot of articles up over there on a regular basis. So you can check that out. But anyway, yeah, take advantage of that and share it with your churches. Again, I really would appreciate if you would share this with your churches because we know that pastors and ministry are very busy doing what they do and probably have no idea that these things are going on around the world. And that's one of the reasons we do this week after week. But anyway, we do appreciate you guys and thank you so much for helping us, be part of what we're doing here.
Thank you again, Susan, so much. And thank you to the audience. Hey, you guys, until next time, God bless and stay safe.